The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. And welcome to the show. Good to have you right here. It is Ambitious Radio, hosted by our friend Doug Parker, talking about entrepreneurship and leadership while interviewing interesting people and what makes them ambitious. Now, you know the show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, Grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system. You know, most of the time, small business owners need to personally guarantee any loans that their companies take out. That can be kind of tough to do if you have credit issues. So if you have less than perfect credit, go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for a free credit report evaluation. RepairMyCreditNow.com. Doug, what do we have going on today?
Today, we got another good one. We got Bud Pierce, and he is the brain behind the Neuro Power Academy and the concept of leveraging your mind's infinite potential. Bud works as a performance coach and clinical hypnotherapist?
Hypnotherapist, that's right.
Hypnotherapist, all right, and travels the nation teaching how to perform at peak levels in all areas of your life. You know, I've heard of hypnosis, and I had not put those two words together, hypnotherapist. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Doug. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. You know, you and I have known one another, I don't know, for a decade or so, and you know, it's always interesting, you know, the people you know and how you know them and kind of some of the cross-pollination. And, you know, a month or so ago, we ran back across one another's paths. And, you know, I know that you've got some really interesting things. I think the last time you were in my office, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you were talking about speed reading and how you're like taking pictures with your brain of the page and absorbing information. But man, tell us just a little bit about yourself in general, where you're from and where you grew up and those kind of things.
I sure will. Well, Doug, I was born and raised in a town in Southwest Virginia. Bluefield, Virginia. It's right on the state line of West Virginia. Grew up there. I went to college at a school called Emory and Henry. It's a small liberal arts college in Southwest Virginia. I studied history. When I left there, I went back to my hometown and realized I couldn't do a whole lot with a regular history degree. So I went back to college for another 2 years and earned a degree in psychology. And then, of course, I wanted to go to school more, so I went to graduate school, and I studied industrial organizational psychology. Upon finishing there, I took a position as a plant personnel manager up in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. Worked there for right at a year and a half and ended up at one of the nation's largest railroads, Norfolk Southern Corporation, working in their human resources department, and assisted the staff psychologist there doing testing and evaluation, which was what I'd gone to school to be trained for. Spent 4 years traveling the nation for the railroad. Ended up in Atlanta, Georgia, and believe it or not, ended up in the insurance industry. I experienced some corporate politics, which I really wasn't exposed to until then, and decided I did not like corporate politics. So I love the idea of getting out of something what you put into it, and I found that in the insurance industry. Spent 20 years with one corporation, moved from Atlanta to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then to Dallas, Texas, where you and I met. I learned a lot about managing people, motivating people, training people in that industry. When I retired, I thought I'd be retired, and I got bored very quickly and went to work for a national insurance agency out of Nashville, Tennessee, as a national recruiter and trainer, national sales director. once again got tired of traveling and moved back to Roanoke, Virginia, where my mother was living. My father had passed away, and my mother had dementia, so I moved back here to take care of her. When she passed away, I got bored once again and decided I'd go back into psychology. And I had been studying neuro-linguistic programming for years, and I had taken that course in photo reading, which I'm a pretty avid photo reader, and decided that I would just take it a step further and study hypnotherapy. I sought out some of the best schools in the world and attended, and I still am attending. And I do clinical work. I help people with anxiety and stress. I help people get rid of bad habits. I work with athletes, salespeople, professionals basically of all stripes.
Gotcha. Well, so let me ask you this. So I do want to talk a little bit about the photo reading because, when you were first talking about it, you were going through it. You had not necessarily completed the process yet. You were just telling that you were going through and studying, and obviously you're a very educated man, and you continue to educate yourself on many different topics. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was very intriguing to me, and I know that many entrepreneurs out there, they love getting information, but a lot of us don't like to read. For whatever reason, we prefer to listen to stuff or whatever. I don't know if it's ADD or what it is, but I was intrigued by the vast amounts of books and how voracious of a reader you are and how you can just process all that information. And do you really retain the info?
Oh, absolutely you do. So it's based on the theory, well, not really theory, it's based on the fact that we have photographic memories. And you have to learn how to use your photographic memory. I believe everybody is a genius. And the way we're taught to read in school is really not based on how the brain works. Learning to read from left to right in word order really doesn't make much sense to the brain. As an example, I'm sure you've read one of these crazy paragraphs where the letters are jumbled or words are missing, but you can still read it, right?
Mm-hmm, yep.
And so the brain is a supercomputer without a manual. And the concept behind photo reading is that the brain remembers everything it sees, and it's stored in the hippocampus. So everything we've ever seen, heard, tasted, touched, smelled is stored there. And I was told that a long time ago. Now I know it as a fact as a hypnotherapist because I can do some basic regression and get people to tell me a certain date, a certain age, everything that was around them. It's pretty amazing. But the photo reading, basically what you do, you put yourself in a deep state of relaxation, and you carry on a conversation basically with the author of the book. So, when you want to learn something in a book, you might not necessarily need to know everything in the book. You might have a general sense of what you need. And so you sort of skim the book. You decide if the book's right for you. You put yourself in a light trance, which is easy to do. It's called the tangerine effect. And then you open the book and you sort of look through the middle of the book, Doug, where you're looking at all four corners of the open pages and sort of staring through the middle of the book. And then you start flipping the pages. And your brain is photographing those pages as you're flipping. Now you can photo read from front to back. You can photo read from back to front. You can photo read upside down. It doesn't matter. The brain is seeing it all. Now, I took this course. The company that developed it is a company called Learning Strategies. They're out of Minneapolis. And the course, I took the live course in Dallas probably 10, 11, 12 years ago. And I was fascinated by it. And basically, so you read the book, You know what you want out of the book. You read the book. You carry on this mental conversation with the author, and then you let the information incubate, and then it just sort of comes to you, Doug. What you need to know is just sort of there. Now, I took the course, and I struggled. And I struggled and I struggled. I did better in the course than I did when I got home, but I kept practicing. I finally broke down and called my instructor, and she told me, she said, if you really want to get good at this, you've got to photo read 500 books. So that's what I did. I photo read 500 books, and it has saved me literally years of reading time. I mean, I go to a bookstore now. If I need some new information, I go to a bookstore. I grab a pile of books on the subject. I sit on the floor and I photo read the books, and then I'm gone. I read 1 or 2 books every day. Part of my, and I'll talk more about this, but part of what I'm doing in my Neuro Power Academy is basically, I advertised that I'm doing the work for you. I'm taking new information, applying it to neuroscience, and explaining it in a way that you can understand. But
man, that is pretty unbelievable. Now, we do got to wrap up this segment, but I want to hear more about how you're applying that to the neuroscience and those things right after we hear a brief word from our sponsors. And I appreciate all this great information that you're sharing with us here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Here's another RepairMyCreditNow.com story.
Home ownership. It's the American dream. It's a goal you've always hoped to achieve. You've spent countless weekends looking for the perfect house on the ideal block. The rates are low and you've saved enough for the down payment. Unfortunately, now the mortgage company says there's a little hitch. Okay, let's be honest. It's a gigantic, gargantuan hitch. It's your credit. And it looks like your estimated house payment will be a lot more.
www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Hello, this is Doug Parker with RepairMyCreditNow.com. Do you have less than perfect credit, a repo, maybe some late payments, a collection account? Are they being reported accurately? Studies show that over 70% of Americans have inaccuracies on their credit reports. Where do you fit in? Go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for your free credit report evaluation. And remember, your credit is your future. If you want to get started now, log on now. RepairMyCreditNow.com.
RepairMyCreditNow.com. www.repairmycreditnow.com.
As we get back into the show, let's give a shout out to our great sponsors, all3reports.com. That's all, the number 3 reports with an S.com. You know, many people check their credit every 3 to 5 years when they're financing a home or maybe when they're purchasing a new vehicle. But if there is an issue, it could be too late to do anything about it. So go to all3reports.com to find out more. Speaking of a new vehicle, a wise person once said, lease what depreciates, buy what appreciates. So go to AutoFlex Leasing. They offer a better way to lease your next car. America's largest independent leasing company is AutoFlex Leasing. Doug? Back in here on the show, it's Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, are you thinking of expanding your business but don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a new phone system? Consider Grasshopper.com. You get to keep your existing number, you have multiple extensions, voicemails transcribed, and no new hardware. Grasshopper.com is the entrepreneur's phone system. Let's get back to the show with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and today we got Bud Pierce with us. And man, he is this guy's got all this cool learning stuff. And if you guys are like me, you're entrepreneurs, you're out there, you're making it happen, and you're busy, you're dreaming stuff up, you're thinking about it, you're trying to figure out how do I get all this stuff done, and there is never enough time. So that's why I wanted to spend some time on that photo reading piece. But that's not even really what he does. It's just one of the little things he's picked up. But one thing I did want to ask as we follow up on that, Bud, is do you ever reread books? Is it necessary to do that? Because I like to get refreshers and go back through books again, and then I'll kind of remember something I had forgotten, and it just refreshes me. Does that still play a role in this type of reading?
It certainly does. I'll go back and skim a book, but I take when I'm usually right now I've got so many projects, so many courses I'm developing. I really carefully select the books that I need information out of. And when I photo read a book, as soon as I get finished photo reading, I will take some notes and I will start developing my PowerPoints immediately. And basically, I read a book, I'll PowerPoint it immediately, so I'll have that information and be able to use it in a course.
Okay. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about these courses, because that's really what we're talking about in this segment is kind of what are you doing now, and let's talk about this neuroscience. And I know that in some of the show prep, I saw one of your favorite quotes was basically don't be anxious about anything, and I know that's a biblical principle. And, but for some people, it's kind of like standing on top of the building if you are scared of heights and saying, well, hey, just don't be scared of heights. Sometimes the anxiety is just something that, if you could just flip a switch or, shave it off, then that's what people would do. But can you tell us kind of practically what it is that you're currently doing and who you help?
Absolutely. So I decided I love to help people, and I've helped people my whole life. And when I went to school for neurolinguistics, I discovered that a lot of the NLP techniques really can help people break bad habits, can help people relax, can help people sleep, solve a lot of problems. And so I decided I wanted to take it further, and I went to a hypnotherapy school, and I went up to New York City to the Center for Integrative Hypnosis that's owned by a brilliant therapist by the name of Melissa Tiers, Tiers. Melissa is one of the preeminent hypnotherapists in the nation, and she has a very an amazing, very intense school. And I went through her school, and I sort of flipped her out. I was walking the streets of New York City at night selling hypnosis because I was a salesperson. And I would come back in the next morning, with free steak dinners and free coffee and free this and that. And they couldn't believe that I was on the streets selling. And so she introduced me, I impressed her, and she introduced me to her teacher, who was a NLP modeler, which means he created new neurolinguistic techniques. His name's John Overdurf. And John sort of hit me in the head of a 2x4 by telling me that, I'm sorry to tell you this, bud, but when you get back to Roanoke, Virginia, you're not going to make a lot of money doing clinical hypnotherapy. And I was floored by that because I'd spent a small fortune and had spent, a long time studying. And I said, well, what can I do? And he said, you need to develop a product around something that you know. And so I went home and I started thinking, what do I know? Well, I know sales. Then it, like a light bulb, went off in my mind. I understand the obstacles that a salesperson has. I understand call reluctance. I understand procrastination. I understand goal setting, why goals aren't set. I understand about resiliency and why we have to be willing to accept change, because everything around us is constantly changing. We've got to learn how to vary our routines. So I designed a course, and I call it Neuro Power Selling. Well, the course is just really taking off. It's really the only thing out there like it right now, and I hope it stays that way for a little while. But I'm teaching some amazing skills to salespeople. Now, along the same lines, I've got a lot of other courses I'm teaching. I'm doing one called Neuro Power Peace, P-E-A-C-E. That's designed around helping people get rid of stress and anxiety, because a large part of my personal practice is stress and anxiety. And I believe that I can teach people to turn it off, to get a good night's sleep, to not worry. We're only born of two fears, and that's the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Everything else that we're afraid of in life is in our minds. We're programming ourselves. Most people walk around negatively programming themselves all day long. So I've learned to take these techniques I've learned and apply it to everyday life. I'm getting ready to come out with a new product called Neuro Power Living, and it's going to be a weekly message. I'll have subscribers. I think it's going to be offered for like $5 a month, and every week you'll get a a weekly lesson broadcast, through the course portal.
I was kind of taken aback. I was thinking $5, man, that just doesn't seem like very much. But it just kind of got me processing. So let me ask you this. Currently, how is it that you derive the majority of your revenue? Is it because, you alluded to the fact that one of your mentors had said, hey, you're not going to make a bunch of money doing this, but have you gotten some momentum going? Do you do public classes? Is it all one-on-one? I mean, how is it that you're doing it right now?
Yeah, I've got it set up on e-learning. I've got a website, neuropoweracademy.com, and it goes over all of my courses. I've got a product site. It's courses.neuropoweracademy.com. It's all in short, easy to understand video lessons with a workbook and quizzes. It's set up in short segments so it's not overwhelming to the students. I'm doing great, Doug. I've got 6 large companies right now that are using it. Using it in the insurance industry. I'm using it in the auto industry. I'm using it with real estate agents. But, I think it's good for anybody because after all, we're all salespeople. If we're not selling our product, we're selling our ideas to each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. When you came out to my office today, and I am a fan of yours in general because, like I said, I've known you for a long time. I've seen some of the things that you do, but you came out to my office with another mutual friend of ours, Brian Flanagan, which has been on the show before. And Brian, of course, has been part of the Ziglar organization and Zig Ziglar's group for something like 30 plus years. And, one of the things that Zig always talked about was that same thing about being a salesperson. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Everything that gets purchased, everything that is in this world pretty much is bought or sold at some point. And the reality is that, you have to present yourself in a certain way, and that's in a way selling stuff. So nothing to be ashamed of there, but I did go through, a little snapshot of your course the other day. And guys, when you're talking about anxiety, I don't tend to be an anxious person myself. I just don't sweat the small stuff. I just don't worry about too much, to be honest with you. But that is easier said than done for so many people out there. And literally, had Bud talking to the group, going through some exercises, and there was literally a lady on the front row that he's talking to, and we're going through the exercise, and he's picturing these beaches and this water and different things, and then poof, she falls out of sleep almost. I mean, she was literally her eyes, she was starting to wobble a little bit, and it's just getting to a point of peace and stability and just kind of letting the bad stuff go. But there's a process behind doing it. It wasn't designed to put anybody asleep in a class. It was designed to, prepare your mind for that and ease your mind. Now, the other side of it is no different than when you sell something. This is what I picked up out of it is, as a salesperson, like whenever you sell something, you go high five somebody, you're kind of, doing the fist up and down or whatever the case is. That's kind of an after the fact type process. But Bud trained us also that you can program yourself to kind of get those juices flowing and do the same thing before you go in to make a sell, to have that same feeling, that euphoric feeling, and get the, I'm thinking, what is it, neurotransmitters to get those pumping? Right. Is that right? Okay. Yeah, that's definitely. Right. I'm not the teacher. I assure you of that, but I was so excited about it. It was just great information, and obviously that's why we had him here on the show. Now, that does wrap up another segment. I can't believe we're already halfway done with the show, but after we get another brief word from our sponsors, we'll hear more from Bud and the things that he's got going on did you say it's the Neuroscience Academy? Is that correct?
Neuropower Academy.
Neuropower Academy. Let's make sure I get that right. Neuropower Academy. I'll say it one more time. Neuropower Academy. Right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Could you lose your career because of your faith? Could your pastor be sued because of his sermons? Can students and teachers be punished because of what they believe about God or what they say? Can the government or even your employer force you to violate your beliefs? Get the answers, and if necessary, legal protection from First Liberty Institute. This is Kelly Shackelford, president of First Liberty. We're the nation's largest legal organization dedicated exclusively to restoring religious freedom in America. In fact, First Liberty's nationwide network of top attorneys win over 90% of their cases. We've won at the Supreme Court all the way down to the local schools. If you want hope for religious freedom, go to firstliberty.org and get your free In God We Trust window clean. That's firstliberty.org.
Back in here on the show, it's Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, are you thinking of expanding your business but don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a new phone system? Consider Grasshopper.com. You get to keep your existing number, you have multiple extensions, voicemails transcribed, and no new hardware. Grasshopper.com is the entrepreneur's phone system. Let's get back to the show with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network with Bud Pierce. And Bud, you know, I'm so appreciative all the time, the relationship, the knowledge that I've gained from your courses and the things that you're doing. And I really think that there's a lot of people that some things you can figure out on your own. You know, there are some things it just makes sense. It's illogical. I think the things that you are teaching, to be quite honest with you, that if you're not taught them, you will never figure them out. It is something that for whatever reason you have been programmed or programmed yourself or however you want to look at it to be who you are today. And these aren't things that you just decide, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm just going to not be anxious. You've got to have a process in place where I'm just going to speed read, picture read stuff. I mean, you can't make those things up. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of how you make the determination of what to do next and kind of as you transition through things? I mean, you've had a couple different seasons in your life, what that decision-making process looks like, and then maybe some fears that you went through during those processes and how you overcame them.
Well, certainly, yeah, my life has progressed pretty dramatically. You know, they say that the past generations maybe only had one or two careers, and I'm starting my fourth. And it's all sort of piggybacked on each other, going from the psychology, which I thought I was going to end up being a psychologist my whole career, to experiencing the corporate politics and going into sales and learning how to communicate with people and how to public speak, and which is my passion, is public speaking, and then doing the group sales and insurance, and then transitioning, leaving the insurance industry and getting into developing these courses online. It's been an amazing journey for me. And, you know, basically what I try to do, Doug, is think about problems in my own life. And how do I solve the problems in my own life? And then how do I teach that to other people? And, you know, one of the biggest things I learned in my studies was about self-talk. You know, the brain, it's called neuroplasticity is the way we learn. And the unconscious mind or subconscious mind is 90% or more of who we are. And the interesting thing about the unconscious mind is that it believes whatever you tell it, whether it's true or not. And if you think about what you say to yourself all day long, we're constantly telling our unconscious mind that we can't do something or we won't do something. And when you stop that negative self-talk, it's life-changing. You know, I was taught in the insurance industry. I read everything that Zig Ziglar ever wrote. I read everything that Brian Tracy ever wrote. I remember sitting in cars out in front of customers' homes, Doug, shouting at myself saying, I'm a great salesperson. I'm going to close this sale, you know, doing these affirmations. The problem was I didn't really believe it. I was saying it to myself, but internally I was telling myself, well, there's some doubt here. I may not get this sale. I may not get this referral, or, you know. So once I learned actually how to turn that affirmation into something that the unconscious mind would accept, that changed everything, changed the whole game for me. It's changed my life. I'm sitting here close to 60 years old, and knowing that I've got the biggest part of my career right in front of me because of what I've learned. And I can't wait to share it with other people. Knowing how to get rid of stress and anxiety, how to eliminate all your fear, how to get a good night's sleep, how to lose weight, how to reach goals. And when I learned about goal setting, I've always heard that if you don't have a goal, Zig Ziglar said you're a wandering generality without a goal. Well, goals basically are taught incorrectly. They're not taught based on reality because they don't incorporate change. Most people look at their goals as a destination of something they're going toward or something they want. Really, goals need to be looked at as a direction, not a destination, because all we are is change, and everything around us is changing. And you can't say for certain what's going to happen 6 months from now because we don't know what's going to happen this afternoon. So if you become resilient and treat your goals as a direction, you can get a lot accomplished. And that's what I'm teaching.
So let me ask you this. So let's just say for a moment, because you mentioned change several times. Now, I know you in such a way that, you kind of talked about earlier, you had the fake it till you make it attitude, decades ago probably, where you're just like, I think I can, and then, but you didn't really believe what you were saying. And then you kind of went through the process of, okay, look, I got to think it and I got to mean it and I got to say it. But you said change. Now, most people are change adverse. I mean, they do not like it at all. I mean, there's people that you could tell them, I could save you, $100 a month if you'll just change, your whatever. And they're like, no, I don't want to change. I don't know if it's a fear of the unknown. I don't know what that is, but I know it does create anxiety. So I know we're kind of talking back around and kind of to the last segment, but still, change is very important. I mean, if you are going to, grow your business and do things like that, you have to be changing constantly because the world is changing, and, those that cannot adapt become extinct. I mean, just ask the old dinosaurs, right? So, can you talk to us practically about that? How the change and you've got to continue to do those things, and how you take the anxiety out of change by some of your training?
Right. I teach something John Overdorf taught me, and that's noticing what's new and different in your life. Noticing what's new and different every day in your life, and learning from what you notice that is new and different. And that can be new and different in your career. It can be new and different in your communications with people. And if you start noticing what's going on around you, you're amazed at what you can learn. Most people are tunnel focused. They have like a 3% field of vision. And as an example, you drive home the same way every day, and suddenly you notice something you've not seen before, but it's been there for 30 years, maybe a building or a house or something. Our brain only notices what we tell it to notice. It doesn't see everything around it unless you focus on seeing everything around it. So I've trained myself to notice what's new and different every day. And then I take what I've learned every day and I incorporate it into the next day's learnings. And I try to build momentum that way. And I do build momentum that way. And then I start varying what I do in my work. It's an amazing process. John Overdorf calls it the next smallest step. I teach it in every course that I offer because I think if you start looking at life as changing, everything around us is changing, and you become a resilient person, it doesn't matter what happens to you in the future, you're going to be able to survive and prosper, thrive.
That's, that's a good point. And, one thing, and I don't know where I've read it, and like you, the Brian Tracy's, the Zig Ziglar, I mean, all of those, I've been through all the books, mainly listened to everything, to be honest with you. But somewhere I picked up, I promise you, anything that I say, I have picked it up from somebody else. I very rarely create anything unique and great on my own. But it's something about, like, brush your teeth with your left hand if you normally do it right-handed. Take a different route to work than you normally do, just so that you get your brain out of the patterns of the same thing over and over again, where you prepare yourself for change when you're in control of it, so that when it happens outside of your control, it's not like this freak out mode where it's like the OCD, somebody moves something on your desk, you got to turn it, back like it was or whatever. But those are some practical steps of how to do it. And, are there any other, as we kind of wrap up the segment, are there any other things that you can think of that are good things to do just to help prepare people for change and those types of things?
Certainly, you could practice visualizing different situations that you might be in. The language of the unconscious mind is imagination. So if you can imagine different circumstances that could happen to you and see yourself performing, in a great manner in each of those circumstances, that basically gets wired into the unconscious mind. And I teach it to salespeople. I teach it to athletes. If you make a mistake, don't dwell on the mistake. Instead, imagine that you're doing it correctly. Focus on doing it correctly. See yourself doing it correctly in your mind, and it gets rewired that way. If you think about your mistakes, it gets wired in as a mistake.
It's great stuff for our listeners. And guys, if you like what you're hearing, you can subscribe by texting the word ambitious to 69922. Standard messaging rates do apply. See the website for full details. And next, we're going to be talking more to Bud about what he does to recharge his ambitious body, mind, and spirit right here on the Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribe an email. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office.
And we're back in here on the show. It's Ambitious Radio Network, recharging the ambitious mind, body, and spirit, made possible by RepairMyCreditNow.com. Having bad credit can be really draining. It's okay to not be okay as long as you're on the road to being okay. Let RepairMyCreditNow.com help get you back on track. Many of our ambitious listeners prefer to listen to books as opposed to reading them. Now, with that, we've teamed up with Audible.com to offer you one free audiobook. Just go to ambitiousradio.com, click on the Audible banner on the page to find out more. Back to the show now with Doug Parker.
All right, welcome back to the Ambitious Radio Network. This is your host, Doug Parker, and today I've got Bud Pierce with me, and you know what? But I've enjoyed all this kind of outside-the-box stuff that you're doing that, frankly, everybody should be doing some of these things, and whether it's, reprogramming your brain for change, helping to eliminate anxiety, more efficient ways to learn and, just to digest and process, data and learning, it really makes a huge difference. But, when you're out there on the edge doing all these things, you said you're kind of on your fourth career and you're processing through all this stuff, you're entrepreneurial minded, like herding cats, things going everywhere, that can take a toll on you. So what is it that you do to, kind of recharge your ambitious body, mind, and spirit? Are there specific things that you do to recharge?
I love to hike. I live 10 minutes from the Appalachian Trail in the mountains of Virginia. I've got several hiking friends. About once a week, I hit the Appalachian Trail or a nearby mountain and try to hike around 20 miles. I do about a 20-mile day hike. It's exhilarating to me, getting up in the mountains where I see things that most people never see. This past Monday, it was pretty cold. I thought there was ice all around us when we were hiking. But we saw wild turkey, we saw wild deer, we saw where bear had been, but I've seen bear, I've seen a lot of different animals, and I see mountain valleys that just amazing views, hundreds of miles long, and then of course I do self-hypnosis every day, first thing in the morning and the last thing before I go to bed. I get good sleep. Take good care of
hold on
myself.
for a second. Hold on for just a second now. I want to hear about this self-hypnosis. So what does that really look like? What does that mean? So you wake up at what time in the morning, and then what does it look like? Do you get something to eat, or do you do the self-hypnosis right off the bat? What does that process look like?
Well, I'm out of the bed every morning before 4:30 because I photo read in the morning every morning. Before I get out of bed, when I wake up, I don't go to bed thinking about anything. I get rid of all my stress and worries before I go to bed using techniques that I've learned and I teach. And basically what I do first thing in the morning, I think about when I wake up, before my feet hit the floor, I think about what I'm going to be doing today. And just like this morning, I thought about this radio conversation, and I visualized how I wanted to be during this conversation. And I got a picture of that in my mind. So basically, I was looking at myself. I moved that image of myself directly in front of myself in my mind. And then I literally stepped into it, where I experienced it. So basically what I was doing, what I do every day, I wire my unconscious mind for success. And the unconscious mind accepts what I tell it, unlike the conscious mind. The conscious mind will tell you, no, you can't do that, or it'll throw doubt in there. But the unconscious mind believes you. And I practice these techniques so much, my unconscious mind knows very quickly what I'm trying to do and accepts it. And just sort of, I become, like Brian Flanagan teaches, unconsciously competent in most everything I do now.
I know what you're talking about is some of the other things that you do personally. You've gotten to that level where you're unconsciously competent. But can you elaborate on that just a little bit for me?
I agree with what you just said. I think unless you train yourself, one of the things I've learned from John Overdorf is you have to learn to be a trainer. And he teaches, of course, trainer's trainer. And you've got to learn how to teach people to basically format their unconscious mind for learning. And you can do that. I believe you can do that at the top level. You can be a trainer if you know how to do it. Basically getting people relaxed, getting people focused, being engaged. A lot of it is body language and communication, the words you use. A trainer can learn to be a great trainer, and I believe they can do it unconsciously competent.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I just wanted to kind of, when we throw out some of these terms that you and I take for granted because we've been around them for 100 years, I always like to make sure that folks, kind of know what we're talking about. It's not talking in code and those types of things. Now, you mentioned whenever you kind of have the wrap up at the night that you go to bed and not thinking about anything. Now, I know a lot of people that they stress out at night. They have sleep issues. They've got insomnia. They, freak out, and then they go, I didn't go to sleep this morning until 3:30, and I'm like, I ask them all the time, well, how do you know you went to sleep at 3:30? Because I looked at the clock all night long. I'm like, well, that's part of your problem. Okay, stop looking at the clock, and because that just keeps triggering you like anxiety, and you've got cortisol flowing and everything else. But can you talk about how you practically do that, and then how does that affect your rest cycle and your REM sleep and those things?
Absolutely. I've got I teach basically sleep management. I teach it in my selling course, and I teach it in my peace course. I've got 13 rules for a great night's sleep. But one of the things I personally do, I've got a favorite mountain that's got my favorite cabin on it. There's a beautiful, wonderful mattress bed in this cabin. I visualize, if I'm having trouble going to sleep, I visualize seeing this bed with the window open, with the mountain breeze blowing the curtains into the room. It's nice and cool. There's nice warm blankets. I see myself laying in that bed sleeping, and I float into my own body, and I'm out. One of the things people do that really cause people problems sleeping is they wake up during the night, they get up, they go watch TV, they get something to eat, they read a book. They're basically rewarding their unconscious mind for getting them out of bed. So, you got to take the opposite approach. If you wake up for 30 minutes or more, you got to punish your unconscious mind by getting up and scrubbing the bathroom floor or doing something like that. But I've got 13 techniques that I teach. To wrap things up sort of for us, Doug, these courses I've designed are basically going to save people tens of thousands of dollars worth of therapy. And that's what my teachers tell me I'm doing. Why pay me $100 an hour when you can get a course and study from home? And that's what I'm trying to provide to the public.
Well, I tell you what, I can tell, just from firsthand experience and knowing you for over a decade, that you truly do provide value. You're a very interesting person in general, and I'm just really intrigued with all the great, things that you're putting together right now. Now, the last, 30 seconds or so, can you tell us a little bit about if someone wanted to interact with you? Are you social? How's the best way to get in touch with you? If they wanted to sign up for some of your courses, how would someone go about doing that?
Yes, you can email me at bud, B-U-D, at neuropoweracademy.com. And that's Neuro, neuropoweracademy.com. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I respond to email.
Very, very good. Well, I want to tell you, thank you so much for being part of our show. And, it's just great information that you've shared with us today. And in one of the breaks we were talking, I could literally probably talk to you for 4 or 5 hours and continue to get new content and just new cool information of things that you've done and, how you work with the people. So, unfortunately, we've only got an hour-long show. But with that being said, Bud, I just want to appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and share with our listeners. And, guys, remember, tune in on Wednesdays to Ambitious Radio, where we interview thought leaders and exciting entrepreneurs changing the faces of their organizations and others. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot make both. So go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.